Thank you very much, and good morning to you all, and welcome to Washington. You are here in town as we are debating various issues, both in the House and the Senate, and we hope to be able to return to our districts for August. I hope to be able to preserve my marriage. The wonderful presentation before me, I'm not going to be able to engage in as much rhyming as occurred. When I take constituents to the White House for tours of the White House, members of Congress help constituents receive tours of the White House. All visitors on those tours enter the White House through the East Wing, next to the Treasury Building. And right at the Treasury Building, as we are making our way to the gate at the East Wing, there is a wonderful statue of Alexander Hamilton. And I point out to constituents, that's the Alexander Hamilton before the Broadway musical. And he's not dancing, at least in the statue in the Treasury property. I am the Republican chair of the Arts Caucus in the House, and I work with Louis Slaughter of upstate New York, who is the Democratic chair. I am also the Republican chair of the Humanities Caucus in the House, and I work with Congressman Price of North Carolina, who is the Democratic chair of the Humanities Caucus. And certainly we try to work in a bipartisan capacity on important issues to the arts community. And your advocacy is essential, and we hope that you will continue the fine work in which you engage, and we are sure you will. I have great respect for the work that each of you do to develop our future generations of readers, of writers, of thinkers, and ultimately of leaders. I congratulate Americans for the Arts for completing your 5th comprehensive economic impact study of the nonprofit arts community. And I'm sure that this has generated a lot of congratulations based upon the fine work in the study. Your hard work highlights what we have known for a long time. Investing in the arts makes smart economic and fiscal sense. Federal investments in the arts have a tremendous multiplier effect, ladies and gentlemen. For every dollar the United States spends on federal arts initiatives, 9 non-federal dollars are leveraged, generating roughly $600 million in matching support. As a Republican and as a fiscal conservative, I make the point to my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle here in the House that investing in the arts is a worthy federal expenditure. Last year's federal arts appropriation was roughly $150 million, but the industry returned $10 billion to the federal government in income taxes. We like that tax revenue here in Washington, as I'm sure you can imagine. The nonprofit arts and cultural sectors of our economy generate over $166 billion in economic activity and support over 4 million full-time jobs nationwide. Obviously, the statistics speak for themselves. That's the economic component. I come here with good news due to your persistence and the persistence of some of us here on Capitol Hill. And I certainly include those who are involved in the arts community in that group. The House Appropriations Committee, and the committee is chaired by my close friend and colleague and neighbor, Congressman Frelinghuysen, who represents the district in New Jersey contiguous to the district I serve. The committee approved a spending measure that stops the drastic cuts threatening the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and other federally funded arts programming. As you know, about 50 years ago, in the middle 1960s, under the tenure of President Johnson, the National Endowment for the Arts was established, the National Endowment for the Humanities was established, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The three-legged stool that I think is critical to the nation. We prevented $175 million in cuts to these programs, thanks to well-organized efforts of many in this room, perhaps everyone in this room, and partners throughout the nation. The appropriations process here on Capitol Hill is quite complicated. The Appropriations Committee here in the House reports 12 bills, and they're based on topics. The defense of the United States, the Department of Justice, and these 12 bills then reach us on the floor of the House. We'll be voting this week on 4 of those bills related to the defense of the United States, and we will be voting on the others in September. The fiscal year here in Washington begins, as you know, on October 1st, and so we have to have these pieces of legislation in place and sent to the President 2.2 miles west of us here down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House by the end of September for the operation of government for the new fiscal year 2018, beginning October 1st. We in the House tend to pass the appropriations bills, and then the question is whether the Senate will pass them. In recent years, the Senate has not done that in totality, and therefore we've had to pass an omnibus spending bill or a continuing resolution. These are terms of art here in Washington. Not the type of art in which you are engaged, but I hope that the Senate will continue in what is known as regular order so that those bills will be passed. And if that does not happen, then we will pass an omnibus spending bill, and I'm committed to making sure in whatever vehicle reaches the President's desk that funding continues to exist for the arts and the humanities. The subcommittee chairs of the Appropriations Committee are called Cardinals, and there are 12 Cardinals. I think that makes Congressman Frelinghuysen, Rodney Frelinghuysen, as chairman of the full Appropriations Committee, the Pope. Now, theologically, I believe there should be only one Pope on earth at any time. We currently have 2, and I guess Rodney is the 3rd. Certainly he and his colleagues on the committee do an excellent job in that regard. I am not on the Appropriations Committee. I'm on the oldest committee in the House, the Commerce Committee. We like to think highly of ourselves. I think there's a debate among the appropriators, those of us on Commerce and those on Ways and Means. They're the folks who raise your taxes, as to which committee is preeminent, but we all try to work together in these regards. Let me say that I have spoken about the economic impact of the arts. But of course there's another aspect to all of this, and that is the fact that it makes the American culture much greater, much more vibrant, and that is an essential part of the larger whole. I'm pleased to be with you this morning. I welcome you all to Washington, and while you're in Washington, I hope that you will take advantage of the cultural opportunities that exist here. We have wonderful cultural opportunities, and that, of course, is true across the entire nation, as is demonstrated by your fine work. Congratulations for what you do. Keep up the good work, and together we will make sure that we continue to be arts advocates for the entire nation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.